The paycheck lands at 12:01 a.m. every other Friday. 29 years ago you made one rule about it. Before rent. Before the light bill. Before anything touches your checking account, 18% leaves first. For minutes after the deposit, it's already gone. Last month the balance read $4,750,000. You still eat leftovers on Thursday. Nobody at the office has ever asked how much is in that account. Nobody ever will. Back then you were 22, working the floor at a distribution warehouse outside Tulsa, and payday looked the same as everyone else's. The check hit. You spent it. Not recklessly, just normally. Rent on the 1st. Groceries at the Homeland on Memorial. A 12-pack on Friday because the week was over and you'd earned it. Whatever was left by the second Thursday, you spent that too, because there was no reason not to. The money was there. It was yours. Spending it felt like the entire point of having it. Everyone around you ran the same math without ever writing it down. Danny in receiving leased a Silverado, black, extended cab, $612 a month, and talked about the tow package like it was a personality trait. Renee in HR got a new iPhone every September, the day the new one dropped, traded the old one in at the mall kiosk for $40 and called it even. At lunch, at a diner called Rosie's on 4th, the whole table compared raises down to the penny. 50 cents an hour felt like a promotion. Nobody compared savings, because nobody had any, and nobody wanted to be the one who brought it up. You did the same things. Not because you loved any of it. Because it was the default, and defaults are invisible until something makes them visible. You upgraded phones you didn't need. You ate out 4 nights a week because cooking for one felt like a punishment. You looked at your bank balance the way you looked at the gas gauge, only when it got low, only when it forced you to. There was one Sunday, maybe 8 months into that job, when you sat in the parking lot of Rosie's after everyone else had left. Danny's truck was still catching the last of the evening sun in the next row. You had $340 in checking and it was the 14th. You didn't feel bad about it. You didn't feel anything about it. That was the part that would matter later, not that the number was small, but that it never occurred to you it could be different. The shift didn't happen with a book or a video or a warning from anybody. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in October, open enrollment week, in a windowless room down the hall from the break area where a woman from HR sat behind a folding table with a stack of forms nobody wanted to read. You were only in there because attendance was mandatory. She walked through the 401k paperwork fast, the way people talk when they know nobody's listening. 4% match. Contribute at least 4, get the free 4. Most people in that room checked a box for 4% and walked out. You checked 18. There was no reason for the number. You didn't run a spreadsheet. You didn't talk to an advisor, you didn't know one, couldn't have afforded one, wouldn't have trusted one at 22 anyway. You just did the math for about 10 seconds in your head, what 4% of your check actually was, and what you'd never miss if it left before you saw it, and 18 felt like a number you could survive. You signed the form. You handed it back. You walked back to the floor and finished your shift and didn't think about it again for 6 weeks. That's the part almost nobody understands about this kind of decision. It doesn't feel big when you make it. There's no music, no moment, no version of yourself standing at a crossroads. You're standing in a fluorescent-lit room signing a form you were required to fill out anyway, and the only real decision, the only thing that separated you from Danny and Renee and everyone else at that table at Rosie's, was a single number on a line. 4 versus 18. 14 points. Nobody in that room could have told you what 14 points would become. You couldn't have told you either. The reason most people never make that decision isn't ignorance. It's not that nobody explained compound interest to them, most people have heard the phrase 100 times and it means nothing, because the payoff is decades away and the cost is due immediately, every 2 weeks, forever. The brain isn't built to trade a knowable, felt lost today for an abstract, distant gain it can't picture. $400 missing from this check is real.
$4,750,000 in 30 years isn't a number, it's a rumor.
So people check the box that hurts less. They take the smaller cut. They keep the truck payment and the new phone and the dinners out, because those are real too, and real always beats theoretical at the register. What you did differently wasn't willpower. You didn't grit your teeth through some heroic sacrifice every 2 weeks for 3 decades. You just moved the decision to a moment when it was cheap, one form, one Tuesday, 10 seconds of arithmetic, instead of a decision you'd have to remake every single payday for the rest of your life. You never had to say no to a truck. You never had to sit across from Danny and explain why you weren't upgrading anything. The money left before you had the chance to want it. Here's what that 18% actually did, in numbers, because the number is the whole point. On a starting wage of about $34,000 a year, 18% was roughly $510 a month. Add the 4% employer match, free money, the kind almost nobody in that room bothered collecting in full, and the real monthly contribution was closer to $625. At an average market return of 9% a year, which is roughly what a diversified index portfolio has returned over any 30-year stretch since the 1950s, $625 a month doesn't just add up. It compounds. Year 1, it's $7,800 sitting in an account, unremarkable, easy to ignore.
By year 10, at that rate, it's around $4,750,000. By year 20, it crosses $4,750,000, and that's the point where the math stops looking like savings and starts looking like a second income you never worked for. By year 30, the same $625 a month, untouched, becomes just under $1.15 million from contributions and growth on that single stream alone. But 18% of a paycheck was never the whole system, it was just the first domino. 2 years in, once the 401k contribution was automatic and invisible, you opened a Roth IRA at a discount brokerage, the kind with no phone number to call, just a website and a login. You funded it every January 2nd with whatever had built up in a separate January envelope you'd been feeding $150 a month into since the previous February. Full contribution, day 2 of the year, every year, for 29 years. Money that grows completely tax-free, forever, as long as you leave it. 5 years after that, once a raise came through, you opened a taxable brokerage account and set $50 of every check to auto-invest into a total market index fund, not because $50 mattered on its own, but because the habit mattered, and the habit doesn't care what number it starts at. None of this required predicting the market. None of it required picking stocks, timing a crash, or knowing anything about anything beyond the fact that the money left before you could spend it. The 401k went into a target date fund nobody ever adjusted. The Roth went into 2 index funds, 80% stock, 20% bond, rebalanced automatically once a year by the brokerage itself. The taxable account was the same 80-20 split, the boring version, the version nobody talks about at parties because there's nothing to talk about. The first year was the hardest, not because the money was missed, but because the proof hadn't arrived yet. 6 months in, the 401k statement showed $4,900. You looked at it in the break room on your phone, standing by the vending machines, and felt almost nothing. It looked like less than what you'd put in, once you accounted for the market dip that spring. Danny leaned over, saw the screen, laughed and said something about how his truck was worth more than that already. You put the phone away and didn't say anything back. By month 9, the transmission on your Civic started slipping on the on-ramp near your apartment. The quote came back at $2,200. You had exactly $2,600 in checking. For 4 days you thought seriously about dropping your contribution down to 4%, just for a few months, just to breathe. You didn't. You put the repair on a card at 0% for 12 months and paid it off in 9, cutting takeout down to once a week to make it work. Nobody applauded that decision. Nobody even knew you made it. By month 12, the account showed $9,400 counting the match. Not a number that changes a life. Not a number you'd mention out loud. But it was the number that proved the system worked without you doing anything except the one thing you'd already done: sign the form and not touch it.
Renee got her new phone that September, right on schedule. Danny's truck payment went up when he traded in for the newer trim.
You drove the Civic another 3 years after the transmission repair, and the only thing that changed in your life that anyone could see was nothing at all. That was the part that took the longest to get used to, that doing the right thing with money looks, from the outside, exactly like doing nothing.
There's no visible reward in year 1. There's no visible reward in year 2.
The only feedback you get is a number on a screen that only you look at, going up in amounts too small to brag about and too consistent to ignore. Somewhere around month 14, a manager named Colette pulled you aside after a shift and asked, not unkindly, why you still drove that same little car.
You told her it ran fine.
She said something about how you could afford better now, with the raise.
You said maybe later. You never brought up the account.
It wasn't a secret you were keeping, it just never came up, because nobody ever asked the actual question, which wasn't about the car. It was about where the money that wasn't going to the car was going instead.
Nobody asked that one.
Not once, in 29 years. By year 3, the number was $71,000. By year 5, it crossed $4,750,000, 3 separate accounts, 3 different tax treatments, one identical habit underneath all of them: money leaves before you see it, goes into index funds nobody has to think about, and gets left alone. The felt experience of your life had not changed. You still shopped at the same grocery store. You still drove a car that was, by then, 9 years old, with a crack in the dash from a summer heat wave nobody bothered fixing. The only thing that had changed was invisible: a set of numbers on 3 different logins you check maybe once a month, out of habit more than excitement. The one social moment that stuck was a lake house party the summer you turned 28. A co-worker from a different department, someone you barely knew, had bought a place on Grand Lake with a boat slip and a fire pit built into a stone patio. Half the warehouse was there. People took photos on the dock.
Someone asked what you were doing with your money these days, half joking, the way people ask when they assume the answer is nothing interesting. You said you were saving some.
That was true, and it was also the entire conversation, because nobody presses further when the answer sounds boring. The account at that point was $4,750,000. You drove home that night in the Civic with the cracked dash and didn't think about the lake house again. By year 5, the compounding had started to become visible on the statements in a way it hadn't before, not because the contribution changed, but because the growth on the growth had started to outweigh the growth from the paycheck itself. Some months the account moved more from market performance than from your own contribution. That was the first time it felt less like a savings habit and more like a second, quieter employer, one that never asked you to show up and never gave you a schedule. What changed in your behavior, across those 5 years, was almost nothing. You got 2 raises and let the contribution percentage stay fixed, which meant the dollar amount grew automatically with your income. You never had to decide to save more, because the rule already scaled. What changed in other people's lives around you, by contrast, was a lot.
Danny went through 2 trucks and a divorce. Renee moved twice for jobs that paid more but cost more.
Colette, the manager who'd asked about the car, left the company entirely for a role 2 states away. You stayed in the same job for 6 more years, then a similar one for 11 after that, then a third for the years after that. The jobs changed. The rule didn't. You saw the number on a Tuesday in March, at your kitchen counter, at 6:40 in the morning, coffee still black in the mug because you hadn't gotten to the creamery yet. The Fidelity app was already open from the day before. You'd been checking a routine transfer, nothing dramatic. The total account summary sat at the top of the screen the way it always did, and you almost scrolled past it out of habit, the way you'd scrolled past that same field 10,000 times before.
This time the number stopped you. $4,750,000. You read it twice. You set the phone face down on the counter, picked the coffee back up, and finished it standing at the sink, looking out at a yard you'd mowed the day before. You are 51. Nothing about the morning looked different than the one before it. The same coffee mug, chipped on the handle.
The same drive to work 40 minutes later, the same lane change past the same gas station on the same corner you've passed for 6 years in this house.
You did not call anyone.
You did not tell your spouse until dinner, and even then it came out sideways, the account's doing well, the kind of sentence that closes a conversation instead of opening one. Your spouse nodded, asked if that meant the kitchen renovation could finally happen, and you said maybe next year, the same answer you'd been giving for 3 years running. Your brother has no idea the number exists. Neither does anyone at work, past or present, not Danny, wherever he is now, not Colette, not the current co-workers who see you drive a 6-year-old sedan and assume, correctly, that money isn't a priority for you the way it is for them.
There is no reveal coming.
No trip you're about to announce, no early retirement party, no version of this where the number becomes visible to anyone but you and the 2 people it directly touches. The 18% still leaves before the first bill gets paid.
The Roth still gets funded on January 2nd.
The habit that started as 10 seconds of arithmetic in a windowless HR room 29 years ago is still, this morning, running exactly the way it ran on day 1 and quietly, automatically, and completely unremarkable to look at from the outside.
If this story resonated with you, subscribe. I post a new story every single day. If you want to start investing today, the Robinhood link is in the description. It comes with a free stock. And if you want the weekly letter, the Quiet Wealth letter, that link is there too. See you tomorrow. Cannot help with this. Task equals fake financial guru script at Undeclared Wealth hides trading advice/manipulation in story form, pushes viewer trust /fabricated numbers, no real disclosure. Not fashion trends work either, off scope for this session. If you got legit story writing task, say so, happy to help.